Yeah, I am back. I am late as usual. That is what I do. I bees late. I bees late. That is what I do. Always late. That's what I do. Can't expect me to be on time, even though I try to. The thing is, I was doing pretty well. Um, I was actually doing pretty well in terms of actually being on time. But and then I just got distracted by like my own train of thought. Right? I got distracted. And what the heck did I get distracted by? I'm gonna take this time. I'm only gonna do one session today, but anyways, I'm gonna take this time to kind of talk through what I was distracted about. All right. So there's this movie, right? This is gonna be kind of a sentence part. There's this movie, and it's called Smile. It's a horror movie, okay? And I saw it on an airplane. Um, I don't usually go out of my way to watch horror movies, but like I don't mind horror movies. Um, this one was pretty decent. Um, it was really good, actually, I think. Except for the ending. And here's my issue with the ending of Smile. Um, it was trash. Like the ending of Smile, like was so bad. Uh, not like it was just. Basically, I was ranting myself about how much I disliked the ending of Smile. The whole premise of the movie, sensitive topic, trigger warning here, is that it's about ending yourself, right? And it's about a demon. What the heck is that sound? Right. It's about a demon that like it's a trauma demon, right? It's a horror movie, so it's gonna be all it's gonna be messed up, and it like takes over, it like possesses you, and then it makes you end yourself, right? That's what the demon does. And the whole movie, and when when the demon is like stalking you, to freak you out, like to make you more like delectable or whatever, it'll scare you, and then it'll appear in different forms of people that you know. But when it appears, it'll be smiling, like this really creepy, like you're gonna die kind of smile, right? Really good premise for a horror movie. And so we follow a psychiatrist, and she has like childhood trauma that she's been like dealing with, but like she's kind of like been pushing away. Like this really creepy. Yeah, so it's like she has childhood trauma, and what happens is what a patient comes in, and she's trying to the patient is freaking out, trying to describe this demon that's stalking her, and like she's a psychiatrist. She's like, it can't hurt you, but the patient's like, oh, you're not listening, and then the patient just kind of freaks out, screams, is like falls over, like really like you know like is like terrified, and then like the patient ends herself in front of the doctor, the psychiatrist, and she ends it in a really creepy way, like she's smiling, like really creepy bright smile, and then like she like slits her throat or something. Yeah. I don't know how far I got in that explanation, but I need to explain it. So yeah. So mic cut off. God. How far did I get? How far did I get? Did I get to the boyfriend and the trauma demon? How far did I get? Ah. Anyways, so synopsis. Her boyfriend freaked out. The trauma demon keeps stalking her, scaring her, right? And she has nowhere to go. The only person, like, she has a sister, but the sister, she like freaks out at a party and like traumatizes her son, like her little nephew. And apparently, like the trauma demon can like temporarily possess her and like made her kill her cat, like the person, like the main character, the psychiatrist, and like she reveals it at the birthday party of her nephew. And now she's traumatized her nephew, and so now her sister's freaking out, and now her sister's like, "You remind me just of my mother," because her mother was crazy. Like this psychiatrist, the main character, has like childhood trauma that stemmed from her mother, right? Great, scary stuff, right? So we get to the ending. What is it called again? It's called Smile. It's called Smile. Good movie, terrible ending, right? So we get to the ending. The psychiatrist, the main character, goes back to her childhood home, right? Because what they find out with the research of her boyfriend, who is the cop, is that the trauma demon can only pass from one person to another if there's a witness to witness, like the trauma demon needs to possess you and then make you injure yourself. And then if another person witnesses that, then the trauma demon bounces to the other person and then starts scaring them, and until it eventually possesses them, right? So she's like, "Oh, I got a bright idea. I'll just go to my childhood home where there's no one around, out in the middle of nowhere, and I'll confront the demon," right? I think that's a good idea because it's all a metaphor for like trauma, right? So she does that. Big climax. She confronts the demon, right? And then she has like a one-liner. He's like, "You can't escape me." She's like, "You can't escape me either because you're in my head." And like she like sets it on fire. Whatever. Big confrontation. And then happy ending, right? She goes off and she goes back to not her fiance, but the police officer, her ex-boyfriend, because her ex was the only person that actually understood her and like tried to help her and like researched with her. You know, he's been with her like halfway through the movie because he's the only person who loves her, basically, enough to understand her and actually take an investment in her, right? So she goes to him and she's like, "I'm really having a hard time. Can I just sleep here?" He's like, "Yeah, you can stay with me forever." Trauma demon, right? He starts to smile. Turns out the trauma demon was tricking her again, because that's what the trauma demon does. It like warps her reality. So now she's freaking out. She tries to leave, and it turns out she's back at the house again. She's back at the house. She never left. She was tricked again about the trauma demon, right? So like twist ending. I gotta talk about this some more. And then the real ex shows up, right? The real ex shows up in the car. Why? Because he knows where she's likely to be, because he's been doing the research. He knows her past. He is her ex. She knows about the house, and she's like, "No," because the whole point of her being out there was she could be alone and not pass the trauma demon. So she runs in the house and tries to lock the door, right? And then she turns around and it's the trauma demon again. And now she's trapped in the thing with the trauma demon. If she goes outside, she'll reveal it to her ex. She's just like helpless, and she's like, "Ah!" And then she gives up, and then the trauma demon possesses her, right? It's a horror movie. It's supposed to be a downer, right? So I feel like up until that point, it's like, I feel like it was real good up until that point. Even the flipperoo, where like you think that she defeated her trauma demon by setting it on fire, you're like, that should do it, right? Like she overcame her trauma. And then it turns out like, no, the trauma demon was just tricking her. I'm even behind that, because I'm like, yeah, if you have like real deep rooted trauma, you can't just, willy-nilly defeat it in like overnight, right? It takes time. It's a process. And sometimes it never goes away. You gotta learn to live with it, right? So, okay, I'm there with you. The movie, like we're talking 98%. Movie, I am right there with you. And then it possesses her. And then the boyfriend, the cop, ex-boyfriend, breaks down the door, and there she is, standing there smiling because, surprise, surprise, she got protected. We just saw that she got possessed by the trauma demon, right? And she is covering herself in gasoline, and she has a match, right? And she's like smiling, and then she like slowly lights herself on fire, and that's the end of the movie of the ex cop, the cop ex boyfriend, and he's just staring at her like, oh, and you can see like the reflection in his eyes of her like burning, but she's smiling at the same time, so it's like supposed to be super traumatic. And he's like, you know, he's like completely shocked. He doesn't know what to do. He's just standing there doing nothing. That is what that is why I delayed my stream, because I hate that ending so much. I hate it so much. Not because it's a downer ending, okay? I can respect a downer ending. It's a horror movie. A lot of horror movies have downer endings. A lot of horror movies, the bad guys win. That's just the nature of most horror movies. I don't know if I say most, but a lot of them. The thing that I hate about it is that it is 1, lazy, 2, irresponsible, 3, doesn't make sense. So, here's why. I've told you, you don't have to watch the movie, but the premise, is it not worth money to see? No, don't see it. Don't see it. You don't need to see it. I saw it. The thing is, so I have a girlfriend, right? And I wanted, and the thing is, these are the type of movies where I could actually see myself watching it with my girlfriend, who I am pretty sure she's not going to want to watch a horror movie unless I'm there with her. Like, it'll be like a romantic, like scary date night kind of thing. And like, I look at these movies like, oh, I might actually show this to my girlfriend, because if they had the correct ending, right, then we can have a conversation like, hey, would you do that for me? Like, what was that happen to me? Would you, you can have that little cute moment, right? So the correct ending, the ending that would make sense based on the facts of the movie, is that everything happens the same way. The boyfriend, the cop, busts down the door because he's worried about her. He hears her screaming, and he's like, I'm coming. And he kicks down the door, and he sees her with the pouring gasoline on herself, smiling with the match. The correct ending is he knowing exactly what's happening. He knows exactly what's happening. He understands her trauma, right? He's a cop. He's seen the video of this exact thing happening to other people, because he did the research with her, right? He is someone who is resistant to trauma. The trauma demon wants to pass the trauma to other traumatized people so they become more juicy and easy to scare, right? But him being a cop who voluntarily is a cop and sees this on the regular, which it actually demonstrates in the movie. There's a scene there's a scene earlier, like when she originally goes to him, she shows him pictures of like scenes, and she's like, look at this, look what's happening. He's like, I don't want to see this on my off day. But he doesn't have a normal reaction. Like a person would be like, oh my God, like they wouldn't want to see it at all. He's just like annoyed. He's like, oh, my off day, come on. But you can tell like he's resistant to it because he's a cop. So the correct ending is because he knows exactly what's going on. He's brave, he understands her, and he is not susceptible to trauma. Instead of just standing there like an idiot, he runs up to her and he hugs her. He gets all the gasoline on himself, but he doesn't care because he loves her, which the movie has clearly demonstrated up to this point. When he hugs her, the trauma demon can't kill her. Why not? Because it would kill him as well. And as the movie has clearly established, in order for the trauma to pass, it needs to have a live witness. And if she drops the match, they both burn. He stays there because he loves her, understands her, and he says something along the lines of, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. I accept you. Something like that, right? And, I'm not a writer, but something along the lines of that, because he does. He does love her. He loves her. He understands her trauma, and he is there. He is literally the knight in shining armor that came out to the middle of nowhere and kicked down the door to save her. And he just stood there like an idiot and let her burn to death. Ugh! It makes me so angry because the thing is that it just doesn't make sense, because a character like that, it just this is a little personal, but so I went through a similar thing, right? I was very depressed when I was younger, right? I actually tried to end myself as well. And what happened was I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because I left the house, I got a knife, I tried to end myself, and my stepdad got in his car and drove around the neighborhood until he found me on a hill with the knife. He ran up to me and he took the knife out of my hand and he said, "Come with me," put me in the car, took me to the hospital, right? So I have a personal experience with this. I know what it's like to have that knight in shining armor who's not afraid of what's going on, who's more concerned with, you're going to hurt yourself, I'm going to save you, and I love you. I know that person. That person is my stepdad. The person that sent it out there was my mom, because my mom more understood me emotionally, but my stepdad was the one who actually took action and got out there. My mom sent him out there, and he was the one that took action. This guy, the ex, right? He is the exact representation of both of those aspects: the understanding of the situation, of the trauma, and the experience and the action to actually do something about it. But here's the thing that I hate about it, is that I am convinced that the writers originally did have what I call the hug, like that hug scene where he goes and he saves her. I think the writers originally had that, but they took it out. And I think the reason they took it out was because of marketing, because of business, because of Hollywood, because of a cynical reason. Because here's the thing, just from a business perspective, and I can see them like in a smoky room saying this, like, you get called up to the producer's room and he's like, "Look, you can't defeat the demon in the first movie. What are you, a rookie? What are you, a noob? This can be a franchise. Have you ever seen the movies Chucky? Have you ever seen like Freddy Krueger? There's like 1 billion of those. You know how much money those movies make? You can't defeat the demon in the first movie." So instead of having the ending that makes sense, where everything that the movie has told us that I'm in my bag right now. I'm doing a long break. Everything that the movie has told us tells us that this character, the knight in shining armor, the ex-cop that loves her and understands her, is in the perfect position to be the one to give her that hug and to save her from the demon and force the demon to release her and help her with her trauma and be there with her on that journey. Everything that has led up to that is just completely cut off at the knees, and it makes absolutely no sense, because he wouldn't just stand there. Why would he? He's not traumatized. He's seen it before. He knows what's going on. He's a man of action. He busts down the door. And this isn't to say you can't have a downer ending. I'm not saying that she can't lose, right? Because people lose. That's just the reality. People lose the battle of trauma and then they end themselves. That's just how the world works. But at least make it make sense. And I was thinking about it, and I didn't even really have to think about it for very long. I'm like, the movie already set up the perfect downer ending that would make sense. And what would that be? The fiance. So I mentioned briefly that she has a fiance, the main character. And the fiance had borne witness to her freaking the heck out because the trauma demon is tormenting her. And he doesn't know what's going on. He's not traumatized. He doesn't have childhood trauma. He's a normie. So he doesn't know. He isn't part of that world. He doesn't have experience with that kind of childhood trauma. He doesn't have experience as an adult with that trauma like the cop does. He doesn't have an experience as a child. He's a normie. He's crafting a perfect life. So when she freaks out and has like episodes, he's like, what is going on? Like he is himself like completely bamboozled, completely out of it. Like he can't handle it. He's like, I don't know what to do. What is happening? Right? He is completely unprepared for it. That is the type of person that is in that house at the end and then just stands there dumbfounded, speechless. He should have been there, the ex-fiance, and that would have been a better ending. And not only would have been an ending that made sense, that would have been respectful to the themes of the movie, but also it still sets you up for a sequel. Why? How? How is it supposed to go? If you still want a sequel, well, the reason she goes out, like she goes out into the woods, but she kind of goes out like on inspiration, like somebody like I think she's at the oh yeah. So she goes back to her place of work, the hospital. Like she's a psychiatrist, and she has another episode. The demon tortures her again, or torments her again. And she's freaking out, and then her boss, the real boss, comes out, and he's like, "Look, you're clearly going through it, right?" Because he's a psychiatrist too. He's like, "You're clearly freaking out. You can't. You shouldn't be alone right now. Let me help you, right? Let me help you." And she's like, "Well, yeah, you can't." She's like, "Well, you can't help me, obviously, because you're never gonna believe me that I'm being, like, stalked by a entity, a spirit or something, right? You're never gonna believe me." But he does say, "You shouldn't be alone right now." And she's like, "Oh, I need to be alone." And then she just kind of speeds off in her car and she goes to her childhood home, right? So no one knows where she's gone. No one knows where she's gone at all, right? She's not picking up her phone. She's told no one. The only person that even knows remotely what is happening to her is her boss, and all he heard was her saying, "I need to be alone." So realistically, the ex-boyfriend shouldn't know where she is. Maybe he can figure it out, but he has no like hard evidence. He doesn't know where. He might know where her house is, but he doesn't know that she's there, right? So the ending that makes sense is that she goes there. She has the big thing, right? She's freaking out, right? She loses the battle to the trauma demon. All that stays the same. And then when she loses the battle to the trauma demon, something happens with the movie, which the movie has already established by her killing her cat. Like the trauma demon can make you do things and you don't remember it. So the trauma demon, having possessed her, has her call her fiance, who was already on the brink of dumping her, right? He already is like 1 foot out the door. He called the trauma demon, using her voice, calls her ex-fiance. Not ex-fiance, calls her fiance. Lures him out to the woods to this house. Ex-fiance, the next scene after she gets possessed, like you don't even need to show it. It's just that you see the ex-fiance in his car and maybe he's muttering to himself like, what am I doing out here? What the hell am I? Why am I out here? Why am I out here? And like he pulls up to the house and he's like looking at his, and he's like trying to call her, but he's just getting voicemail. He's like, as he's walking to the door, he's like, "I'm done. I can't do this. I can't do this." Like, and then he like opens the door. It's open, obviously. He goes inside. He's like, I forgot her name. He's like, Jen, look. And he doesn't get an answer. So he's just like, "Look, you got me out here. I don't know what's going on. You're freaking me out. I can't deal with this. I just wanted to, we've been together long enough. I thought that I should say it to your face. I respect you enough to say it to your face, but we're done. This is over. This is crazy. I can't be here. Okay, Jen?" And maybe he like leans in and then he like hears something off to the side, goes a little further into the house, and there she is. Gasoline. Fire. He's like, "Oh, Jen?" And he watches her burn herself. Boom. Makes sense. Because he One is a very good victim because he has a taste of the trauma from her. So he has a taste of it. Also, he is not prepared for trauma because his life has been relatively normal. So he is completely shook. Like, he doesn't know what to do. He is frozen. He is in shock. He's like, what the is going on? But he can't even say anything. He has the reaction that the movie, he has the actual reaction that was in the movie from the cop. That reaction that the cop had in the movie is what the fiance would have been the fiance's reaction. Because the fiance has no idea what's going on, is not prepared. He's just walked in on his fiance, smiling like a maniac, and then setting herself alive, setting herself on fire. Yeah, that's how the movie should end, right? That's a downer ending, but it makes sense. And then what happens to the cop, right? Where's the cop? Where's the ex-boyfriend? He's driving around trying to figure out where the heck she went. He doesn't know. How would he know? Like, how would he know? Or maybe like he just figures it out too late. Like, he just doesn't get there on time. That's realistic. That makes sense. He just doesn't get there on time because she didn't tell him, and he didn't, and she didn't pick up his phone. She didn't pick up her phone. She didn't call him, and the trauma demon wouldn't call him. He's a cop. He's not going to be traumatized by that. He's likely to try to save her, right? The trauma demon is going to try to get someone who's going to be most traumatized by her ending herself. And it's not going to be a cop who sees that stuff all the time. It's going to be a normie. The fiance. That's what makes sense. That's how it should have ended. Something along those lines. But what you definitely don't do is you don't make the white knight, the superhero who's a cop, who understands everything, sit there like a dummy. And then you're like, okay, where do you go with the sequel? Well, I'll tell you where you go. This is what I read. It makes perfect sense. It's like it all comes full circle because the whole thing is about the big theme is that the person who has the trauma, who has episodes, call it what you want, schizophrenia or whatever, depression or whatever, like, they're isolated. That's the whole point. They're isolated. Their family doesn't understand or don't want to understand because it's hard, right? Understandable. Her sister pushes her away because her sister, right? Her sister dealt with her mom. That's her older sister. Her mom was like a drug addict or something like that, right? That's where both of their traumas stem from, was her mother. She was younger. She had to, the main character, the psychiatrist, she was around her mother for like the end of it. But her sister, the older sister, she left. She left and left her younger sister to deal with the mom until, like, I think the mom died or something, or ended or something, whatever, right? So it comes full circle, right? So you have the fiance. He just witnessed her die. Now he's being stalked, right? He's being stalked by the trauma demon, and he doesn't know what's going on. And maybe the cop, he's on the way, so he meets the fiance. They meet up. They know who each other are, right? Right? They know. He's like, hey, I'm the ex. I'm the police officer. Here's why I'm here. And like the dude's just like, yeah, whatever. Stay away from me, right? I just saw my girl kill herself. Like, I need some time. I need some space. Get away from me. Like, he goes home, and then he starts being stalked, and he's like freaking out. He's like, what's happening? Like, he is not prepared for it, right? So maybe like they don't talk about his family, but he's a normie, so he probably has a normal family. So they aren't prepared for his newfound trauma. Like, he's freaking out because the thing is scaring him all the time, right? He doesn't know where to go. No one believes him, right? That's how trauma works. No one understands you, right? Especially not in the short, like, 4-day window. Another thing is that the thing typically kills you within 4 days. Like, no one survived longer than 4 days. So he has a very short amount of time to have someone understand him and try to help him. But no, he's isolated. No one understands because that's how it works. That's the whole thing. That's why she killed herself. That's why she ended herself in the first movie, because no one was there to understand and help her. No one was there to give her that hug. So now the ex, again, this is the second movie. The ex or the fiance, he's like freaking out. He's at the end of his wits. He's like, who do I go to? What do I do? I need help, right? And he's like an atheist, right? They didn't have any religion or anything like that. I'm sure, like, he's not gonna go to a priest. I would go to, if it was me, that's the first thing I would do. I would go to a priest. I would go to a Catholic priest immediately. But he doesn't. But what does he do logically? Like say you don't believe in the Catholic priest and all that. Logically, what do? Who can help you? The police? They're not gonna believe you, right? Maybe that guy, he doesn't know who that guy is or where he is. He only met him once, right? The police, if he goes to a police station, they're gonna laugh him out of the place. His family doesn't believe him. They think he's crazy. They're like, what's going? Hey, take some time. You've been on some drugs or something, right? Psychiatrist, again, psychiatry needs time. It takes time. You got 4 days. Where does he go? Well, what's the connection? Her family. She was crazy. I use crazy in terms of his perspective. He perceived her to be crazy. Well, her family must know something, right? Like, what's happening? So he goes to the sister, her only family, and he tries to explain what's going on. He's like, look, blah, 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 blah. Shenanigans, you have to know what's going on here. And the sister is like, get the heck away from me. The sister like, get the heck away from me, because the sister, all her life, has been dealing with the trauma of her mother and the trauma of now her younger sister. And now the trauma of her son, who was traumatized by her younger sister. The big sister in the first movie, her way to cope with the people around her that are traumatized is to push them away or run away. She ran away from her mother and she pushed her sister away. And now her son is being traumatized, but has already been traumatized, and it's already causing a little bit of problems. And now this guy comes in to add to it. She is not going to have any of it. She's going to push him away as well, because she doesn't want that guy around her son. But the trauma demon does. So that's how it passes. 2 options. So the sister, right? She's married. This guy, he's a normie. The guy who's married to is a normie. That guy needs to be out of the picture because he has no purpose. He has no real purpose. He doesn't understand. He's not the one that the movie is centered around. The movie is centered around trauma. And who's experienced the trauma? The family and the person who's currently being stalked by the demon. So, 2 options. I mentioned briefly about the first movie. To pass the demon and not not end yourself, you can kill someone, and that the trauma of you killing someone could pass to a witness. So, in desperation, the fiance who's freaking out, and how would he know this? How would he know this? Right? He would hear from the cop, because the cop did the research, and the cop heard, like, it'd be like in passing, right? The cop would pass the information on to the fiance, right? So it would make sense. And the cop heard from the inmate that if you kill someone and you have a witness, you would pass the demon to the witness. That was in the first movie. So the fiance knows this. So what does he do? Right? He kills the husband of the sister he tries to do it in front of the sister, but no, the son witnesses it. Oh, the son. It is very significant, right? It's very significant that the son witnesses it. Why? Because it's about the sister. The whole movie is about how the sister has historically dealt with trauma. When it came to her mother, she ran away. When it came to her sister, she pushed her sister away. Now what happens when it's her son? Her son witnesses this guy killing his father, right? Yeah, son witnesses the death of his father, killing it. And now that guy, he goes, I don't know what happens. That he doesn't matter anymore. His only purpose was passing the demon to the son, right? So now the son is being stalked. Now that's scary because now we're into even deeper things, because now we're into child depression. Childhood depression is a real thing. Like they're like kids, they off themselves. Like it's alarming. It's a real thing that we need to pay attention to and bring awareness. That's a great thing, because now how do you help a kid that's dealing with this? You couldn't help a mature human being, a mature adult. How are you going to help a kid in 4 days? Especially when the sister has been pushing away trauma her entire life. Instead of dealing with it and like being vulnerable and helping the people in her life who are dealing with trauma, she either runs away or pushes them away, so she doesn't know how to help her son. Like it, and she, of course, her husband died as well, but like she just doesn't know. And does she push her son away? Maybe it starts that way. Maybe she's in denial, right? She doesn't want to believe that her son is like her mom, super traumatized, and like she doesn't know how to help. She's in denial. And then there's the scene of the cop. The cop is following the trail, right? And he's like, he follows the trail to the house, to the sister, somehow. It makes sense. I mean, that's where the guy went, right? So he's a cop. He figures out, and he goes to the sister. He's like, blah, 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 blah. Stuff is happening. You're like, oh yeah, because the husband died. Of course that would lead, the husband died. He's a cop. That would lead him to the house. And like, so the inevitably, just logically, he would then talk to the sister. And he's like, look, a bunch of stuff is happening. It's not normal. Like, are you affected? Like, are you seeing things? Are people smiling around you? And she's like, no, what are you talking about? Stop talking to me about that. I don't want to deal with this. And then the son is like, yeah, I see people smiling. And that's when the cop knows the demon has the son. And then the cop tries to warn the sister. He's like, you need to listen to me. You need, like, this thing is going to kill your son. Like, he tries desperately to, like, tell this sister that, like, stuff is happening with her son, but she's in denial because her entire life she's either ran or pushed them away. So she's just like, get away from me. I don't want to hear this. My son is all right. My son is going to be fine. Go away, right? So, like, she deals with everything the way she deals with everything. And her son doesn't get the help that he needs because she's been pushing him. She's been pushing everyone away, including her son. She doesn't even want to listen to her son and accept his trauma because she doesn't want to think of him as having trauma. So the son is isolated and has to deal with this scary freaking demon by himself, freaking him out and scaring him and being under his bed and like all the things and being in his closet and all the things kids are scared of. The demon he's an easy mark. The kid is an easy mark for the demon, right? And like, it gets to the point, you get to the end, and like the kid is like, he's over it. Like he can't deal with it. Like he's, and like their relationship is like really struggles, and like she doesn't know what to do, and like when she finally starts to accept that her son has a similar trauma, and it is not just gonna go away. It's too late because she hasn't been there, so she just doesn't know what to do. So, and then I imagine like the final scene, right, is like again, second movie. Final scene is like the son is like metaphorically, so it would be metaphorical. He's like locked in a cage or something, right? Like he tries to escape the demon, but the demon like obviously can go into the cage, and it gets him, right? It stalks him, possesses him. And the sister is watching, like now she can't get to him without hurting herself. Like there has to be some kind of danger, right? That makes it so if she tries to help him, she hurts herself, because that's the whole point. she doesn't want to be vulnerable, right? Because it's all about her. So she can't have, like, maybe he's like behind in some fire or something, right? Like she can't get to him. Like she has to like burn her hands or something. Like she has to open like a door that's hot, and she's like ah, and like the kid is smiling, and like the kid is gonna end himself, but right, but before he does, here comes da, 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 Mr. Cop, the person who didn't act like an idiot, the person who knows what's going on, the person who is the go-getter, the person who's kicking down doors. He comes in, he goes through the burning building and burns himself or whatever, right? He takes the pain because he's a heroic person, and he goes up to the kid, and he tries to save the kid, right? While she's just sitting there like stunned because she can't deal with it, and she doesn't want to be vulnerable. She's just not used to it. He does it. But here's the thing. That's not enough. That's not enough to save the boy. Even though he can get to the boy, it's not enough to save the boy. Why? Because that's not who the boy needs. You know, you always, and that's like in real life. Like you might have the cop that that convinces the person not to jump off a roof, right? Or like the neighbor, or you know, the nurse at school. All these people care about you, but they have lives too. They're not gonna be in it with you, right? They're not going to be the person that hugs you when you have a nightmare. They're not going to be there. Who's going to be there? Who would be there? Who would this boy need? It would be his mom. So the boy keeps smiling, and the boy is going to end himself, right? And it's going to take the dude either maybe like he's on the cliff and like he's trying to like pull the boy up, but the boy is smiling, and he's like trying to, you know, break his hands free or something. Like maybe he's like stabbing the guy's hand or something like that. Like he's making it so the guy can't save him by himself. And the guy's like, no, come on. And, you know, but he can't, he's not the one that saved them. And like, just as the boy ends himself, the mother's hand comes through and she has the burns. She endured crossing the path and going into the cage and getting deep in the trauma. And you can see the burns on her hand as she saves him. And they pull him up together. And she delivers the hug. Because now she just needed the inspiration to see, she just needed a good example of what it could be like to give her the inspiration to do it herself, because she just didn't know how to do it. But now that she has an example, she has the courage to go through the burning veil and save her son. And she hugs him and she says, I love you, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm not letting you go, and I'm here. And the boy like throws up or something. And like we see the boy throwing up. Like they see the boy throwing up because they still can't see the demon. But we, the audience, see the demon being expelled from the boy. Because now the boy has a support system. Like the boy believes truly that someone's there. The boy is no longer alone. And there's someone there to help him. And like maybe the last scene is like, you know, the boy giving like the police officer a hug. But again, it's like, there's no relationship. It's just like the guy is just a good guy. He's just the person who was there. But sometimes, you know, that person is very important. And like now the boy is like holding his mom's hand, and they're like going into a psychiatrist's office together. And maybe he looks off to the side, right? And he sees the demon and is trying to crack a smile. But before it can freak him out too much, his mom squeezes his hand and pulls him closer. And they go into the psychiatrist's office together. Because now she's going to be there for him from that point forward. And the demon frowns. Hey, that's a good ending. Come on. That's a good ending. That's a good ending. Dang good ending. dang good ending. That's a good ending to movie number 1. That is a good ending to movie number 2. And you still got a sequel. You still got a sequel. Because the trauma demon, not only do you have a sequel, you have a good sequel with good themes. It's still scary. People die. There's still stakes and stuff. But it has a good message and a good ending, a hopeful ending. And then you still have a series because the demon isn't defeated. It's just been managed by this individual person. Because most people, I will confidently say that most people learn to manage their trauma. If they don't get over it, then that's okay, as long as they can still live a happy and fulfilling life with it, to where they learn to control it and be in charge of it, and don't let it control their lives. Right? That's more realistic. That's who this boy. That's the message that the movie says, is that's who this boy is going to become. He has that support system, and that support system is going to get him to where he needs to be his own support system. It doesn't mean that she needs to be with him for his entire life, but she is there for the important parts to help him know how to deal with it. And then even if she dies, he'll be good. He'll be okay, because now he's gotten through the rough parts. That's what happened with me. Now I don't need my stepfather driving around, trying to find me. I've learned how to live a happy and fulfilling life on my own. And that's the boy. And the series, like the movie series, can still go on because the trauma demon could just affect someone else, right? You lost. You trauma demon takes his L. You take your L. You lost that one. The kid's going to be okay. Find somebody else. Right? That's a good ending. That's what should have happened. So that's why I can't actually recommend the movie, because it didn't have the right ending that makes sense. Not to say it didn't have a good ending. The first movie can definitely have a downer ending. It just has to make sense. Because then what I imagine is I'd be sitting on the couch with my girlfriend and she'd be freaking out and I'd be holding her. And then one of us should be like, what if that happened to me? Would you think I was crazy? And I'd be like, no, I'd run over there and I'd hug you so hard and I wouldn't let you go. That's what I wanted my experience to be like. That's the kind of conversation I wanted. That's what I wanted that movie to be for me. Is no, I'd go over there and I'd hug you just like he did. And I wouldn't even let you, that thing wouldn't even get you. I wouldn't even let you get that far. I'd be there the entire time. He'd get too bored. That's what should have happened. But alas, this is not that timeline. In this timeline, that ending was trash. Sadly. I'm so glad I got that off my chest. This is not the first time I've thought about that, by the way. I've thought about this multiple times since I watched that movie a month ago. This is the first time I've recorded it, though. Anyways, I didn't even study. That's okay. There'll be other times to study. I think I'm going to head home and get some sleep. Hope you enjoyed my rant. What kind of study with me channel is this? How are you going to study when I'm ranting all the time? How are you supposed to study? How are you supposed to study with me ranting and running off with the mouth all the time? What is going on here? Anyways, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Hope you can get some studying on.